is Mystery Meat's Fine Dining podcast, helping foodies discover new restaurants and new friends. Here's your host, the founder of Mystery Meat, Seth Ressler.
Hello, and welcome to the Fine Dining Podcast. My name is Seth Ressler, and I'm really excited. This is our first episode ever, and we've got, from Boston, Bianca Garcia of the Confessions of a Chocoholic blog. Bianca, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. I am so honored to be part of this.
All right, so you've got a great barbecue restaurant that you're going to recommend, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But before we do, I actually want to let everybody know exactly what Mystery Meat is, because this is our first podcast. We've got to tell them what it's all about. So Mystery Meat was a social dining group that we started in Boston in 2010, and it was basically a bunch of foodies that got together to try a new restaurant. But there was a catch. They didn't know where they were going until 24 hours in advance. And so you get a bunch of really passionate people together, and they would find out where they were going and just have a really great meal. I mean, tell me a little bit about the Mystery Meats that you've been at and who's been there.
Yeah, the very first one I went to was at Myers and Chang. I went there, had a great time, met up with some people who I've actually stayed in touch with and became my friends. I met up with some other bloggers and some non-bloggers, all of them foodies. And it really was so great that I was immediately hooked. And after that, I became an unofficial spokesperson for Mystery Meat, like really telling everyone I could. It was really such a fun way to meet other people who share the same passion for food.
Yeah, so what happened is I actually moved out here to California, and we kept the Boston group going. And the way we were able to keep it going was by having food bloggers like yourself host the different dinners. And so you hosted this great one at Pizzeria Posto.
Well, that one was great because Italian food is probably my favorite cuisine of all time. And I was so excited to introduce it to other people.
So that's what Mystery Meat's all about. If you want to learn more or see photos of some of these events, you can go to mysterymeat.org and find out more about the events that we have. We're starting them up in Boston again. We're actually about to launch a chapter here in San Francisco. And then on top of that, we've now got this podcast which we're launching. This is the very first episode. We're honored to have you here. And the podcast is really about talking to local food bloggers about their restaurant recommendations, about the places that they've tried and they think are great, and letting them share their love of these restaurants with other people. So let's talk about you, Bianca. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Bianca Garcia of Confessions of a Chocoholic. I started blogging several years ago, actually, but really only went public in 2010. Since then, my blog has grown tremendously and has opened up a lot of opportunities for me. And I've met some wonderful people. I was fortunate to participate in a lot of great events. And my blog has become such an integral part of my life. I started it because I wanted to marry two of my biggest passions, which is writing and food. I am originally from the Philippines. I moved to Boston about 8 years ago to be with my family. And then I went to school here, did my master's at Harvard University. I'm doing a master's in journalism, and that's about it.
And Confessions of a Chocoholic, your blog, does that have a particular focus?
It's a good question. People hear the words Confessions of a Chocoholic, and they think all I blog about is chocolate. But it's really a food blog. So I blog about recipes, I blog about restaurants. I even do a lot of memoir-style writing.
But before we actually talk about your restaurant choice, let's talk a little bit about the chef who opened up this restaurant, because she's a little bit of a celebrity herself. Her name is Tiffany Faison. People may know her from Top Chef.
Yeah, Tiffany was in Top Chef, I think, at least 3 times. So she was there in season 1, the very first season of Top Chef, and she came in second. And she was there for the holiday special. And I think her most recent appearance there was for season 8 for the All-Stars, where they gathered Top Chef participants from past seasons, and then they all competed against each other in season 8. And Tiffany is great. I've met her a couple of times. She is super friendly, but I love her because her food is amazing. I have been a big fan of her when she used to have a restaurant here in Boston called Roca, Italian, rustic Italian. And recently she opened up this restaurant, and it's called Sweet Cheeks.
And tell me the story of how Sweet Cheeks got its name.
So I mentioned that she used to be at Roca, and she said when they were lagging, the line cooks and her would just yell at each other and say, "Let's pick it up, Sweet Cheeks." And it stopped, and she named her new place Sweet Cheeks.
And tell me about the neighborhood that Sweet Cheeks is in.
It's in Fenway Park. That vicinity is usually known for its bar food, sports food. So anyway, I don't think people were expecting to have a culinary gem there. And then Tiffany came along and bam, Sweet Cheeks had lines around the block, always packed. This is cliche, but it was love at first bite. First of all, let me tell you, I love meat. I'm a chocoholic. I love desserts, but I am a meat-eating gal. And if you like meat, if you like barbecue, you have to go to Sweet Cheeks. They have Texas-style barbecue.
What exactly does Texas-style mean? Because I know they're very influenced by Texas there.
It's smoked, and so it's served dry. It's not served dripping with barbecue sauce. Each table comes with 3 different kinds of barbecue sauce, so you can dress up your own meat any way you want it. So I think they have the regular barbecue sauce, they have the spicy barbecue sauce, and a vinegar-based one. It's a very homey, rustic restaurant to the point that the drinks are served in mason jars, and food is served in trays. They don't even have plates. They just have trays, like trays of food, and they just plop down the meat and the sides there.
Tell me a little bit about some of the appetizers you've had in the time that you've been there.
So the very first appetizer I tried there is fried okra. Now, I think okra is a polarizing ingredient. People think it's slimy. I used to think it's slimy. I still think it's slimy. But for some reason, their okra is very light, well-seasoned, really crisp. I was even surprised that it didn't come with a dipping sauce, but it was so well-seasoned, I didn't need it. I always order the biscuits. A lot of people say it's the best biscuit they've ever had, and I'm one of those people. Very, very sweet and fluffy and buttery and huge, really, really big, served with honey butter, which is also pretty addicting. And, you order a bucket of biscuits, I think it comes in 4, and it is just so good. So anyone listening to this, if you're going to Sweet Cheeks, make sure you get those biscuits.
All right, let's talk about some of the main dishes. What kind of meats are we talking here?
All right, meat, like I said, they have a bunch of different kinds, like beef brisket or pulled pork or chicken, like half roast chicken. My favorite is the pork belly. Now, pork belly is very tender, and you could really taste the smokiness of it. Still a huge serving. I have never once finished off an entire serving, let alone half a serving. But that's one of my favorites at Sweet Cheeks.
Let's talk beef.
Beef. The beef brisket is my other favorite. Very well marbled. Nice big char on the outside too. And a lot of my friends get that often. And then we usually just share and swap out our meats.
And then what about dessert? Is there a dessert you recommend?
Yes. My favorite dessert there is the butterscotch pudding. In all honesty, when we order that, we weren't expecting anything amazing, especially because we were already blown away with the meat. But it was so good. It has the perfect balance of just enough sweetness and a little bit of saltiness. Like they sprinkle it with sea salt.
You ready to play a little game with us? Here's how this works. This game is called Out of the Frying Pan. I'm going to put 30 seconds on the clock. I'm going to ask you for specific types of recommendations, and you're going to just tell me the first thing that pops into your head.
Okay, that's kind of scary, but let's do it.
All right, the restaurant that you go to most often.
Russell House Tavern.
Your favorite spot for outdoor dining.
Ooh, I go often to Deep Ellum in Alston because I work there.
Your favorite breakfast spot.
My home.
The most romantic restaurant in the city.
Oh, wow, that's hard. I love going to Sorolina for special occasions and dates, so I'd say Sorolina.
All right, and your favorite sandwich shop?
Darwin's in Harvard Square.
That's it? That was quick, right?
Oh, that was easy. That was fun.
That wasn't too painful. You did great.
Thank you.
Bianca Garcia of Confessions of a Chocoholic. If people want to find your blog or follow you on social media, how can they do that?
My blog URL is just www.confessionsofachocaholic.com, and you can find me on Twitter at Bianca Garcia.
All right, great. Thank you so much for being our very first guest on the Fine Dining Podcast. We appreciate having you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
This has been Mystery Meat's Fine Dining Podcast. You can find links to the websites mentioned in this episode at mysterymeat.org/podcast. Thank you for listening.